The flight attendant didn't even let her reach her seat. One arm shot out, blocking the aisle plastic badge gleaming under the harsh lights. Derek Halston, lead service manager. "Ma'am," he said, voice clipped, "I need to see your boarding pass." Other passengers moved freely. No one else was stopped. No one else was doubted. But Vanessa Ellis, black, confident, carrying nothing but a leather laptop bag, was already marked as a problem. She handed over her pass without blinking. Seat 2A, first class, exactly where she belonged. Derek frowned loud enough for everyone to hear. 2A, are you sure? Behind him, a man in a navy cashmere jacket, William Holt, appeared. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The message was clear. Move, step aside, know your place. Vanessa stayed where she was. Calm, solid. "This seat was assigned to me," she said, her voice level. Derek didn't check the system, didn't verify the ticket, didn't even glance at her eye for more than a heartbeat. Instead, he smiled, that tight, practiced smile, the one people use to hide prejudice behind professionalism. "We've had incidents," he said. "Large withdrawals, people pretending to be someone they're not. No evidence, just instinct, just feeling." Passengers shifted uncomfortably. Phones tilted subtly. Everyone could feel it. Something ugly was happening right there in first class. And what they didn't know was this: the woman they were trying to humiliate was Vanessa Ellis, CEO of Ellis Global Ventures, a tech empire worth $47 billion, and what was about to happen wouldn't just ruin careers, it would set the entire airline on fire. Have you ever been made to feel invisible before anyone even knew your name? This wasn't just about a seat. It was about power, prejudice, and the reckoning that was coming at 38,000 feet. If you believe respect should come before prejudice, drop a respect first in the comments and hit subscribe now. Because today's story isn't just about humiliation. It's about a lesson and a reckoning that shook an entire institution. Hi everyone, welcome to Black Witness. Let's get started. The first thing Vanessa Ellis noticed as she boarded Horizon Air Flight 476 was the look. Not from the other passengers, at least not yet. It was from the flight attendant, a tall white man with a gleaming badge that read, Derek Halston, lead service manager. His smile was tight, practiced, the kind of smile people wore when they were trying to mask a reflex. Vanessa moved easily down the aisle, dressed in a simple charcoal blazer, dark jeans, and comfortable loafers. She carried no assistant, no designer luggage, no entourage, just a leather laptop bag slung over one shoulder and a sense of quiet purpose. Seat 2A, window seat, first class, exactly where she was supposed to be. As she reached her row, Derek stepped forward just a little too fast. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, blocking her way with an extended arm. "May I see your boarding pass?" Vanessa blinked. Other passengers had moved freely to their seats without so much as a second glance. But she was already used to this choreography, the way suspicion often preceded service. Of course, her voice was calm, almost cheerful. She handed him her boarding pass without hesitation. Derek's eyes flickered to the ticket, then to her, then back again. His brow furrowed. He repeated loud enough for the surrounding passengers to hear. There was an edge to it, not disbelief, ownership, like somehow she didn't fit. "Yes," Vanessa confirmed with an easy smile. The smile of someone who had climbed too many mountains to stumble over a gatekeeper at 30,000 feet. Behind her, a low murmur stirred the air. Business travelers in press suits glanced over the tops of their newspapers. A woman with a designer tote shifted uncomfortably in her seat, still holding her boarding pass. Derek hesitated. Then he smiled, that same rehearsed smile. "Would you mind stepping aside for just a moment while we sort this out?" he asked. Vanessa's smile didn't waver, but inside something steeled. "Sort what out?" "I'd prefer to take my seat," she said with a politeness honed by years of navigating such moments. Derek's hand flexed around the boarding pass. "There's been a mix-up. This seat is usually reserved for one of our VIP guests." He said it smoothly, as if reading from a script, but the weight of the words reserved VIP was clear enough. Reserved for someone who looked the part. Reserved for someone who wasn't her. Before Vanessa could respond, a man appeared behind Derek in his mid-50s with thick silver hair and a navy cashmere jacket slung over his arm, William Holt. He didn't say a word, but the way he loomed behind Derek said enough. He expected her to move, expected her to know. Vanessa's phone was still in her hand. Out of habit, she tapped the record button. If today was going where she suspected it was going, she wasn't about to walk into it unarmed. Derek glanced over his shoulder at Holt, then turned back to her, a thin sheen of nervousness now visible at the base of his neck. Ma'am, he said more insistently now. We're asking you to cooperate. The first-class cabin had gone completely still. The energy had shifted. Everyone felt it. Vanessa calmly reached into her bag, pulled out a second form of ID, and placed it neatly on top of her boarding pass. This seat is assigned to Vanessa Ellis. She said, her voice a little firmer. Now Vanessa Ellis, Horizon Platinum Executive, confirmed ticket. TSA pre-check ID, verified at gate. Is there a further issue, Mr. Halston? A few rows back, someone coughed awkwardly. A man in a navy suit reached casually into his pocket, raising his phone just slightly. Derek looked trapped, but Holt was growing impatient. Well, Holt demanded, his voice dripping with condescension. Are we going to fix this or not? Vanessa stayed exactly where she was. Rooted, grounded. In that frozen moment, Derek fumbling Holt. Seething passengers watching the wheels of something much larger began to turn. And what none of them knew yet was this. The woman standing calmly before them wasn't just any passenger. She was the CEO of Ellis Global Ventures, a tech empire worth $4 to $7 billion. And in the next few hours, the quiet storm they had just unleashed would rewrite their lives forever. The silence after William Holt's words was like a live wire sparking in the narrow aisle. Passengers pretended to look away, but their body language betrayed them. Phone cameras angled discreetly. Newspapers lowered just enough to watch without seeming obvious. Everyone felt it. The energy of a moment teetering between casual discomfort and open confrontation. Vanessa Ellis didn't flinch. This seat, she said again, voice smooth as glass but carrying an unmistakable edge, was assigned to me, confirmed by Horizon Air Systems. Would you like me to show you the confirmation email too? Derek Halston shifted awkwardly, caught between Holt's unspoken pressure and the fact that Vanessa's paperwork was indisputably correct. Still, he didn't step aside. Instead, Holt let out a theatrical sigh and turned to the nearby passengers, addressing them like an aggrieved host at a cocktail party. It's not about the seat, he said, his voice dripping with false politeness. It's about maintaining certain standards for the comfort of our regular patrons. I'm sure you understand. A few nods. A few more cameras were raised. Someone, a woman with a pearl earring, murmured something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like unbelievable. Derek cleared his throat. Ma'am, what Mr. Holt is referring to is that certain guests, certain loyal frequent flyers, are accustomed to particular accommodations. It's tradition, you might say. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Tradition. Right? She'd heard that word weaponized before too many times. I see, she said quietly. Tradition, the word lingered like smoke between them. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in another seat, Derek suggested quickly. Still first class, of course, just elsewhere. Away invisible? No, Vanessa said, simply setting her laptop bag into the overhead bin. With deliberate calm, I'm quite comfortable right here. Her refusal, delivered without anger or apology, seemed to puncture something in the air. Derek's face tightened. William Holt shifted his stance, clearly unaccustomed to being denied anything, especially by a black woman who stood 5 inches shorter but carried herself with the gravitational pull of a star. You people are always looking for a problem where there isn't one, Holt muttered, not bothering to lower his voice. The words slapped the air. The casual venom of it sent an almost visible ripple through the first-class cabin. Vanessa turned slowly, fully facing him now. For one long second, she said nothing. She didn't need to. The tension crackled electric, unbearable. Behind her, a young woman clutching a backpack pulled her phone higher openly. Recording now. Another passenger, a middle-aged Latino man in a sharp blue suit, leaned into the aisle, frowning. Excuse me, the man said, addressing Derek. She's just trying to sit in her assigned seat. Isn't that what you want from all of us? Derek's mouth opened and closed. Before he could stammer out a response, Holt cut in. Mind your business, he snapped at the man. The cabin was fracturing now. Lines were being drawn not by uniforms or ticket class, but by something deeper. Something raw. Vanessa caught Derek's gaze again. I suggest you check your passenger manifest, she said, before this situation escalates further. Her tone wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Derek hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment, the eyes, the phones, the awareness that something larger was unfolding here than just a seat dispute. He stepped aside reluctantly. I'll double-check, he said, voice faltering. He disappeared toward the front of the cabin. William Holt, however, remained standing, lingering, seething. You think you can come into places like this and demand respect? He sneered under his breath, just loud enough for Vanessa to hear. People like me built this airline. We made it what it is. Vanessa leaned back against her seat, looking up at him with measured calm. No, she said evenly. People like you kept it from becoming better. The words hit like a slap, quiet but unmistakably lethal. The woman with the pearl earring gasped audibly. The man in the blue suit muttered something that sounded like, damn right. William Holt's face flushed a furious red. He spun away, stalking toward the galley like a man too enraged to speak without damning himself further. Vanessa exhaled slowly. Not because she was tired, because she understood the real battle hadn't even started yet. As Derek returned, his face pale, he held a tablet in his hands. I've confirmed your assignment, Ms. Ellis, he said, voice stiff with forced professionalism. My apologies for the inconvenience. The apology was empty. The damage was already done. Vanessa nodded, once clipped and formal, as she pulled her seatbelt across her lap. Behind her, whispers bloomed like wildfire, phones buzzed. Passengers shifted in their seats, all of them aware that they'd just witnessed something not easily forgotten. And miles away, in a sleek corporate office atop a downtown skyscraper, Horizon Air's CEO would soon receive the first alert of a brewing storm, a storm their team would be powerless to control. Because Vanessa Ellis hadn't just boarded Flight 476 as a traveler, she had boarded it as a mirror held up to the face of a system that had hidden in plain sight for far too long, and this time the whole world was about to see. The seatbelt light dinged overhead, but the cabin remained stiff, brittle with unspoken outrage. Vanessa Ellis didn't move. She sat there, hands folded neatly over her laptop case, staring out the window as the plane began taxiing toward the runway. Outwardly calm, inwardly she was a lit fuse burning slowly. 2 rows up, William Holt barked at a flight attendant to bring him a double whiskey before takeoff, ignoring her stammered protest that alcohol service wouldn't begin until airborne. You know who I am, he growled. Do your damn job. The attendant, a young woman named Sophie, whose hands visibly shook, hurried off. Vanessa watched the exchange in the window's reflection. Pattern recognition. The same arrogance, the same entitlement, the same contempt wrapped in a threadbare smile of superiority. Different setting, same war. Across the aisle, the man in the blue suit leaned toward Vanessa, voice pitched low. For what it's worth, he said, you handled that better than most people would have. Vanessa gave a brief nod but didn't answer. Her mind wasn't on personal vindication. It was on the bigger picture now, because this wasn't over, not even close. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Derek huddled with another flight attendant, whispering urgently, glancing over at her, then darting away toward the cockpit. A warning bell rang in her mind. Damage control. Cover-up. She was no stranger to it. She had seen entire corporations move faster to hide bias than to fix it. As the engines roared and the plane lifted off the ground, Vanessa's resolve hardened into steel. They wanted this moment to fade, to become a whisper instead of a reckoning. She wouldn't let them. 15 minutes after takeoff, the cabin lights dimmed slightly for meal service. Flight attendants bustled politely from row to row, smiling too brightly, avoiding eye contact. When Sophie approached Vanessa's row, her face flushed with anxiety, she fumbled with her words. Ms. Ellis, would you care for the vegetarian entree or the grilled chicken? Vanessa looked up. For a heartbeat, she considered declining. But no, she wanted them to have to look her in the face. To serve her, to see her chicken, please, she said crisply. Sophie nodded, almost relieved, and shuffled back to the galley. In the overhead compartments, phones were still quietly recording. Passengers had begun posting tweets, short video clips, Instagram stories, hashtag Horizon, Air Disgrace, First Class Bias, Vanessa Ellis. The hashtags were multiplying like wildfire. Vanessa's own phone buzzed incessantly in her bag. News alerts, tags, mentions, but she ignored them. Timing was everything. Strike too soon, and it would look emotional. Strike too late, and they'd spin it as a misunderstanding. Across the aisle, William Holt noticed the atmosphere shift. The tight, uncomfortable energy crackling through first class. He drained his whiskey in 2 angry gulps and slammed the glass onto his tray. Unbelievable, he muttered loudly. A plane full of sheep letting this nonsense happen. A few heads turned. None in support. Derek appeared again, sweating now, a clipboard clutched in his hand like a shield. He leaned down toward Vanessa, his voice falsely bright. Ms. Ellis, he said, we'd like to offer you a complimentary voucher for a future Horizon flight, as a gesture of goodwill. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. A voucher. A plastic bandage for a gut wound. Tell me, she said, her voice velvet and blade as the voucher for the price of dignity or just inconvenience. Derek's smile faltered. We're trying to make things right, he stammered. Right would have been not assuming I didn't belong here in the first place, she said coolly. Passengers around them listened openly. Now, no one even pretended to look away. I'll pass on your voucher, Vanessa said, dismissing him with a glance. But tell your supervisor he'll want to check his notifications. Derek retreated without another word. Vanessa pulled out her laptop connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi and opened her draft email. Subject formal notice, incident of discrimination on Horizon Flight 476. Recipients, Horizon Board of Directors. CEO Gregory Lancaster. Internal Ethics Council, outside legal representation. She didn't just describe the incident, she laid it out clinically, surgically. Every microaggression, every biased assumption, every failure to follow protocol. Attached preliminary screenshots of passenger recordings already going viral. Attached a memo offering Horizon 24 hours to respond before her legal team, and several national news outlets received the full report. She hit save as draft waiting, timing always about timing. By the time the first course of the meal was cleared away, the atmosphere in the cabin was unrecognizable. People were no longer whispering, they were talking openly, animatedly. She paid for that seat, said one woman in a sharp green dress. Why should she have to move? It's disgusting, said another man. They didn't even try to hide it. A middle-aged white man 2 rows up kept his head down, pretending to sleep. He hadn't said a word. Vanessa felt the shift in the cabin like a tide turning. What started as a solitary confrontation had evolved into something larger, uncontrollable. She wasn't alone anymore, and that terrified the crew more than anything, because there was no isolating her now, no silencing, no quietly moving her to another seat to make the problem disappear. They had made her visible, and soon so would the world. It started with a vibration on Derek's hip, then another, then another. By the time he pulled out his corporate-issue phone, the screen was lit up like a Christmas tree. Urgent text, calls from numbers tag, HQ. Emergency, multiple missed calls from his direct supervisor. His throat tightened. He clicked open the first message. Urgent, do not escalate with Vanessa Ellis. Immediate containment is needed. Senior leadership en route. He blinked confused. Vanessa Ellis. That's Vanessa Ellis. The name didn't immediately register, but the growing panic across company channels told him it should have another buzz, another notification. This one from a news alert. Breaking Horizon Airlines passenger alleges racial discrimination in first-class seating incident. Video footage circulating. His palms turned slick with sweat. He whipped his head around, searching the cabin. Vanessa sat calmly at her seat, typing steadily, occasionally glancing out the window with a small, almost serene smile. She looked exactly like someone who knew she had already won across the aisle. William Holt huffed in his chair, missing entirely the shifting gravity of the situation. Still oblivious, still dangerous. Derek stumbled toward the front of the cabin, nearly dropping his clipboard, muttering into his headset. But it was already too late. The bomb had detonated. 10 rows back, a young woman tapped furiously on her phone, live streaming the situation to tens of thousands. In the back galley, flight attendants whispered in frantic knots. Passengers weren't just aware now, they were witnesses, documenters, amplifiers. The cabin had become a courtroom, and the trial had already begun. In the cockpit, Captain Warren Grayson, a veteran of 30 years, was being briefed by a visibly pale senior attendant. She's Vanessa Ellis, the attendant stammered. The captain frowned. The name rang a bell. He tapped a few keys on the flight system console and pulled up the internal incident report filed just an hour ago about passenger disruption in 1A. There it was, plain as day. Passenger name, Vanessa Ellis. A beat, then another beat. Suddenly it clicked. Not just any name. The Vanessa Ellis, CEO of Ellis Dynamics Global Logistics Innovator. Top 10 Forbes list. Architect of the revolutionary equity and ethics framework that half the Fortune 500 had adopted in the last 2 years. The very woman Horizon Airlines had spent the last 6 months courting for a potential $120 million tech modernization contract. Captain Grayson's stomach turned over. He reached immediately for the cabin intercom. Meanwhile, in C-1A, Vanessa watched it all unfold with the clinical detachment of a surgeon observing an operation. Every tick of anxiety, every frantic whisper. It was the same cycle she had witnessed in boardrooms, mergers, and negotiations. First denial, then panic, then bargaining. The bargaining phase was coming. Sure enough, Derek reappeared moments later, flanked by another uniformed man wearing a strained smile and a horizon pin reading, Senior Customer Relations Manager. They crouched slightly beside Vanessa's seat, adopting postures that were meant to signal deference, but came across like hostages negotiating their release. Mrs. Ellis? Derek began, a voice trembling slightly. Well, deeply regret any misunderstandings earlier. We recognize there may have been a miscommunication. Vanessa closed her laptop with a soft click. I see, she said coolly. And when exactly did you realize it was a miscommunication? Before or after your phone started blowing up? Neither man answered. The second uniformed man, his name tag read. Brent jumped in hurriedly. We'd like to offer you a seat upgrade. Vanessa arched one eyebrow. I'm already in first class. Yes, of course, Brent blustered. But we mean a move to our new Horizon 1 suite, full privacy. Pods. Complimentary bottle of Dom Perignon. Vanessa studied them. Desperation oozed off them like sweat. How generous, she murmured. Given that an hour ago you were ready to escort me off the plane because I didn't look like a certain guest. Across the aisle, several passengers coughed to hide their smirks. William Holt shifted uncomfortably for the first time, sensing that the narrative was no longer tilting in his favor. Vanessa leaned in slightly, her voice dropping, so only Derek and Brent could hear. This isn't just about an apology. It's about systemic rot. And systemic rot, she added smoothly, is never solved by moving people to prettier cages. She sat back. You have a choice, she said simply. Try to bury this or cooperate when the flood arrives. Derek looked like he might faint. Brent forced a brittle smile. We'll relay that to corporate, he said. You do that, Vanessa said, and tell them the clock is already ticking. In the first-class galley, another member of the crew, a young flight attendant named Nora, wiped her sweaty palms against her skirt. She hadn't said a word earlier when the whole mess started. But now she realized how wrong it had been. Quietly, she opened the crew messaging system and typed an internal memo to her supervisor. Subject formal, witness statement, Horizon Flight 476. I witnessed Mr. Holt and flight lead Derek make assumptions about Miss Ellis based purely on appearance. Mrs. Ellis showed valid boarding credentials and was still treated as if she didn't belong. I request that you provide a full witness statement upon landing. Her thumb hovered over the send button for a long, trembling second. Then she pressed it. At 38,000 feet with the lights dimmed and soft music piping through the speakers, it looked like a normal flight, but appearances were deceiving. The cabin had fractured into two realities. The one Horizon Airlines had tried to maintain, and the one Vanessa Ellis had forced into the light. And when they landed, only one of those realities would survive. The seatbelt light blinked on. A mild bump of turbulence jostled the aircraft, but no one noticed. Not really. All attention had shifted into the undercurrent pulsing through the cabin. You could feel it, a crackling pressure in the air, the smell of a storm about to break. In seat 1. Vanessa Ellis crossed her legs slowly, deliberately. Power once claimed was never given back. Across the aisle, William Holt was sweating through his designer button-down. The color rising high on his cheeks, passengers whispered behind newspapers. Phones are angled subtly. Videos were already being uploaded to the cloud. The algorithms were feasting. In the cockpit, Captain Grayson gripped the edge of the console. HQ says the footage is spreading. His co-pilot murmured, reading updates as they rolled in. Horizon bias is trending in the top 3. Globally, CNN's prepping a segment for the 7 p.m. slot. Ellis Dynamics just released a statement confirming Vanessa Ellis is on this flight. Grayson closed his eyes for a long moment. They were midair, trapped with the consequences of their failure. No exits, no safe harbors. Not yet. At the front of the cabin, Derek and Brent tried to buy time, offering increasingly desperate amenities. Ms. Ellis, would you like a complimentary trip voucher? Ms. Ellis, would you allow us to send a formal letter of apology from the CEO? Ms. Ellis, would you? Vanessa simply smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile you gave to someone you forgave. It was the smile of someone who was already writing the next chapter without them. Gentlemen, she said, you're trying to fix a dam with duct tape. Damage has been done. The public's watching. Your next move isn't about me anymore. It's about what the world will see you do under pressure. Her voice was low, controlled. Derek visibly shrank. Somewhere behind them, a sharp voice cut through. You should be ashamed of yourselves. It came from an older woman in 3Cs, standing now trembling slightly with rage, shoving that woman around like she didn't belong. "I saw her ticket. I saw what you did." Her voice cracked. Applause broke out. Not polite golf claps, but sharp, angry applause, raw and immediate. Another voice shouted, "Why is she the one who has to move?" And another, "Yeah, why did you assume she wasn't supposed to be here?" The fuse was lit. There would be no putting this fire out. Jessica, a junior attendant, hovered uncertainly at the galley door, witnessing it all. Her fingers twisted the hem of her uniform nervously. She had seen it, heard it, and done nothing. Now it felt like the air had shifted not just against Derek and Brent, but against the system. The senior crew members were drowning. Trying to patch holes with fake smiles, Jessica inhaled shakily and made a decision. She picked up the service phone and quietly, almost whispering into it, sent an internal alert to HQ recommendation. A full documented incident review is required. Potential legal exposure is significant. Suggest an external mediator be ready at arrival. She didn't even think about what it would cost her career. The truth mattered more now. William Holt, meanwhile, was fuming. This was supposed to be his seat, his domain, his privilege. And now not only was the black woman refusing to move, but the entire plane was siding with her. He leaned toward Derek, hissing low, "Fix this now!" Derek, finally understanding just how badly he had miscalculated, whispered back, "We can't. She's Vanessa Ellis." It was the first time Holt's arrogance faltered. He sat back heavily, color draining from his face. The first-class cabin watched it all unfold like a theater. Not passively, actively. Recorders, witnesses, proof. At that moment, the captain's voice came over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I'd like to apologize for the disruption earlier in the flight. We are addressing all concerns internally and will ensure every passenger is treated with the utmost respect. Moving forward, we appreciate your understanding and patience. It was weak. Everyone knew it." Passengers exchanged glances, whispers buzzed louder. The apology wasn't for Vanessa. It was to protect themselves from what was coming. Vanessa didn't even blink. She returned to her laptop, typing steadily an email to her legal team. No doubt the storm was brewing far beyond this aircraft now. This wasn't about seating anymore. It was about accountability. And Horizon Airlines had just painted a target on its own back, big enough for the whole world to see. At 38,000 feet, trapped with the truth, the crew of Flight 476 had no choice but to brace for impact. Not the kind caused by turbulence, the kind caused by justice, and for once it was traveling first class. The landing gear engaged with a thud. The plane dipped slightly, wheels kissing the tarmac harder than necessary, a physical punctuation mark to the turbulence inside the cabin. Flight 476 had arrived at Phoenix International Airport. But it wasn't just a destination. It was a reckoning. Inside the cabin, the air was taut, almost brittle. Passengers clutched their bags tightly. Phones stayed glued in the recording position. Eyes darted between Vanessa Ellis in 1A and the red-faced crew huddled by the galley. The plane's engines roared, but they couldn't drown out the sound of collective judgment humming through first class. Derek and Brent stood frozen near the exit. Jessica lingered near the beverage cart, pretending to straighten napkins, but her hands trembled. The cabin door opened with a hiss, and waiting there, not a lone gate agent, not an oblivious baggage handler. No, standing on the jet bridge were two impeccably dressed lawyers flanked by two representatives from Horizon's executive office. Their expressions were carved from stone. They were here for one reason: damage control, but it was already too late. "Miss Ellis," the lead lawyer, said, voice carefully neutral. "May we have a word?" Vanessa didn't rush. She powered down her laptop, slowly slipped it into her leather tote, and rose from her seat. Heads turned. Phones lifted subtly higher. The moment was being documented from every angle. "I think you've had plenty of words today," Vanessa said, her voice clear and ringing. Her heels clicked deliberately on the cabin floor as she walked toward the door. Derek tried to murmur something, some pitiful apology about misunderstandings, but she didn't even glance at him. She stepped onto the jet bridge into the waiting firestorm. Beyond the door, the real chaos waited, reporters clustered behind barricades, cameras already rolling, news tickers on airport screens blared, breaking discrimination. Incident rocks, Horizon Airlines, CEO Vanessa Ellis. Involved, airport security struggled to maintain order. Passengers from her flight were giving impromptu interviews. Some were holding up their phones, replaying videos. Some were furious. Some were crying. Vanessa walked through it like Moses parting the Red Sea, composed, relentless, regal. A dozen microphones were thrust toward her. Ms. Ellis, how do you respond to the treatment you received today? Are you planning legal action? Does this affect Horizon's pending technology, partnership with Ellis Dynamics? Vanessa paused at the checkpoint. The cameras leaned in. She adjusted the strap on her tote and faced the crowd, calm as glass. Injustice when witness demands action, she said simply. I intend to respond in a manner fitting the magnitude of what happened today. Not just for myself, but for everyone who has ever been told, without words or with them, that they don't belong. The words exploded across news channels in real time. A standing ovation broke out from the passengers behind her. Even some airport staff clapped. Vanessa didn't linger for more questions. She simply walked on unhurried, undiminished. A woman who understood that sometimes the most powerful retaliation was refusing to be made small. Back inside the plane, chaos reigned. Derek had slumped into the jump seat, his head in his hands. Brent stared blankly at the ground. Jessica wiped at her eyes, makeup smudging. Captain Grayson received a terse message from HQ. All crew involved in Flight 476 report directly to the executive offices upon arrival. Immediate internal review. They were not going home tonight. Maybe not ever. In Horizon's corporate headquarters 20 miles across town, the CEO, Nicholas Sharp, watched the news coverage in mute horror. A trembling intern stood nearby holding a folder filled with prepared statements. But Sharp knew no press release would fix this. Not when the footage showed everything. Not when the world had already decided the verdict, had justice. For Vanessa was trending. Saw a boycott. Horizon wasn't far behind. Stock prices were falling. The pending Ellis Dynamics contract, worth hundreds of millions, was slipping away by the second. Sharp grabbed the conference phone, fingers shaking slightly. Get me Vanessa Ellis's office, he barked. Now! The intern nodded, bolting from the room, but it was a useless command. Vanessa Ellis wasn't waiting by the phone. She wasn't negotiating from a place of desperation. She was deciding what consequences they would face. At the airport, in a private lounge, Vanessa's legal and PR teams were already assembled. Laptops open, strategy maps fill the air like battle plans. Her COO, Dana Marcus, handed her a tablet. Preliminary numbers, Dana said. We're seeing an 18% drop in Horizon shares already, projected 30% by close of business if this snowballs. Vanessa scrolled through the headlines without flinching. Horizon's leadership will call. Dana continued, they'll offer everything. They'll beg to settle quietly. They'll want a photo op apology and a hefty donation to charity. Vanessa tapped the screen off. No settlements, she said. Voice firm. No stage-managed apologies. We're pulling out of the tech contract negotiations, and we're calling for a federal discrimination investigation into Horizon Airlines. The room went silent for a heartbeat. Then Dana smiled, a slow, sharp smile. Yes, ma'am. Meanwhile, word spread fast inside Horizon's walls. Employees messaged each other in whispers and emojis. Some cheered quietly. Others panicked about their job security. In the pilot's lounge, a junior captain leaned over to her colleague and whispered, Did you hear Ellis isn't just pressing charges? She's organizing a shareholder revolt. At that moment, the power structure of Horizon Airlines shifted. Not with gunfire, not with violence, but with truth. And no PR team on Earth could put that genie back in the bottle. Outside, the Arizona sun blazed down mercilessly. Inside Vanessa Ellis's mind, the fire burned hotter still. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning, and for the first time in a long time, the balance of power was changing. Not with permission, but with undeniable force. Justice wasn't coming quietly. It was arriving first class, and this time it was landing like a hammer. Nicholas Sharp slammed the conference room door shut so hard that a framed certificate fell off the wall behind him. The Horizon Airlines executive board sat around the gleaming walnut table, terrified. Nobody touched the artisanal coffee in front of them. Nobody shuffled papers. Nobody dared breathe too loudly. The CEO's face was a storm, barely contained veins throbbing at his temples. Hands clenched white around a stack of printed news articles. Hal Sharp said slowly, the syllables cutting like glass. Did we just declare war on Vanessa Ellis? The chief legal officer shifted uncomfortably. The crew said she was being uncooperative, he stammered. Standard removal protocol. Sharp's fist slammed down on the table, rattling laptops and coffee cups alike. She was sitting in her assigned seat, he barked. She was the guest of honor at the National Ethics Conference. She is Ellis Dynamics. And thanks to your standard removal protocol, she's about to bury this airline 6 feet under. Silence fell again, broken only by the rapid tapping of phones as assistants outside tried and failed to contain the viral explosion. Across every major news network, headlines blared, "Billionaire CEO Vanessa Ellis, racially profiled, removed from Horizon flight. Boycott Horizon viral video. Shows discrimination bribery. Stock plummets, Horizon Airlines in free fall after viral scandal." The CFO spoke up, voice trembling slightly. "Our shares are down 27% if they hit 30% before the closing bell. Automatic sell-offs will trigger. It'll be a bloodbath." Sharp paced the room like a caged animal. "What about Vanessa? Have we reached her?" "She's not taking calls," the VP of Communications said miserably. She issued a statement through her foundation instead. She slid a printed copy across the table with trembling hands. Sharp scanned the statement and felt the blood drain from his face. Statement from Vanessa Ellis, CEO of Ellis Dynamics. "Today I experienced firsthand what countless individuals endure daily: casual discrimination wrapped in manufactured civility. This wasn't about a seat. It was about dignity and who is deemed worthy of it. Ellis Dynamics will no longer pursue any business partnerships with Horizon Airlines. Furthermore, we are reviewing our 19% equity stake in Horizon for potential divestiture." Change doesn't happen in boardrooms. It happens when injustice costs something. Horizon must decide what price they are willing to pay. A deadly silence settled over the room. One executive, the CMO, leaned back in her chair, muttering under her breath, "We're finished," and she wasn't wrong. Because 19% of their shares. That wasn't just a number, that was leverage enough to call a special shareholder vote, enough to install new leadership, enough to destroy Nicholas Sharp's career. And it was already starting. On the giant monitor behind the board table, emails flooded in. Demands for leadership resignations. Requests for independent discrimination audits. Employee union leaders requesting emergency meetings. A full-scale corporate insurrection was unfolding in real time. Just as Sharp opened his mouth to rally, to claw back some semblance of control, his assistant burst into the room without knocking, face ashen. "Sir, she's here." "Who?" he snapped. The assistant swallowed hard. "Vanessa Ellis. She's in the lobby." The room inhaled sharply. Nicholas Sharp stood frozen for a full 3 seconds. Then mechanically he buttoned his jacket and straightened his tie. "If the Queen wants an audience," he thought grimly, "then let's see what she demands." Vanessa didn't wait for an invitation. She entered the boardroom like a thunderclap. No security entourage, no PR handler, just pure, unshakable presence. Every executive flinched back instinctively, as if she carried a storm on her shoulders. She wore a deep navy suit, the color of battle, and simple pearl earrings. No designer logos, no flashy jewelry, only the calm certainty of someone who knew exactly who she was and exactly how much power she held. Sharp tried to smile. "Mrs. Ellis, please." She held up a hand. "No." The room froze. "I'm not here to hear excuses." Vanessa said, her voice low, lethal. "I'm here to deliver outcomes." Sharp opened his mouth again and promptly shut it under the weight of her stare. She placed a slim folder in the center of the table. "This is a petition," she said, "signed by over 42% of Horizon's voting shareholders." Several executives visibly paled. "We are calling for an immediate emergency vote," Vanessa continued, "to remove Nicholas Sharp as CEO effective today." Gasps rippled around the room. Sharp went rigid. "This is outrageous," he exploded. "You think you can just walk in here and overthrow leadership?" Vanessa's smile was razor thin. "I don't think," she said. "I know." Sharp whirled on his fellow board members. "Well, say something. She can't just—" But their faces were stone. In fact, several board members actively avoided his gaze. In the end, loyalty doesn't belong to people. It belonged to survival. And siding against Vanessa Ellis today was professional suicide. Sharp's voice cracked. "You can't do this." "You did it to yourself," Vanessa said softly. Her final words landed like a verdict. "This isn't a coup. This is accountability." The vote took less than 6 minutes. Sharp was out, fired effective immediately. Security escorted him out the back entrance of Horizon headquarters. No press conference, no golden parachute speech. Just another fallen executive shamed by his own failure to see who truly held the power. Within an hour, Vanessa Ellis was seated at the head of the board table. Not as CEO. She didn't want their titles. She wanted their transformation. She outlined her demands. All employees involved in the incident were immediately fired. Ellis Dynamics designed mandatory anti-bias training across the company. Anonymous reporting systems are installed in every customer service department. Independent audits every 6 months, results made public. Most importantly, a $50 million corporate restitution fund for passengers who had filed discrimination complaints over the last 10 years. Not a penny for PR. Every dollar for real people. The board voted unanimously. They had no choice. That night, the headline screamed, "Vanessa Ellis brings Horizon Airlines to its knees." Corporate Titan flips the script on discrimination. Horizon, under new management, justice takes flight. And in a quiet hotel suite overlooking downtown Phoenix, Vanessa Ellis poured herself a glass of wine. Outside, the city buzzed obliviously. Inside, she stood at the window, watching the world she had just changed tilt a little closer toward justice. Tomorrow, the hard work would begin rebuilding, restoring trust, making sure Horizon didn't just survive but became better. But tonight she would savor this. Sometimes justice didn't arrive in the hands of lawyers and press releases. Sometimes it wore a Navy suit and it walked into the boardroom and rewrote the ending.
I love this story. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more information. Don't forget to check out the video currently on your screen. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one.